For over a decade now, my go-to audio recorder for plugging into the DJ's soundboard at weddings has been the Zoom H4n. But there's a new audio recorder in town. This is the Tascam X8, and today I'm going to be reviewing it from the perspective of a wedding filmmaker and tell you why I think that this is one of the best, most powerful, and surprisingly affordable recorders that you can buy for wedding filmmaking. And to be clear, before we get started, I want you to know that this video isn't paid or sponsored by Tascam in any way, but they did send me this recorder so I could make this review. The first time that you see this review is the same time they will see it whenever I upload it to YouTube, and this recorder will sadly be shipped back to them very soon. Starting off, let's talk about the big reason why I'm upgrading audio recorders, because, like I said, I've been using the H4n for over a decade now, so if it's been good enough for 10 years, why change now? Well, one of my main motivators for upgrading, and one of the main reasons that you may want to consider the Tascam X8, is that unlike the H4n, this recorder is capable of recording 32-bit float audio. What the heck is that, Matt? Well, in short, imagine that you were filming a wedding and you've plugged into the DJ's soundboard or the back of a speaker to record toasts, and you get home and you realize that your audio is peaking and blown out because you didn't set the levels right. If you film weddings long enough, I'm sure this has happened to you at some point, and it sucks. And if you're using a traditional audio recorder, like the H4n for example, which is only capable of recording 24-bit audio, you're basically screwed, because there's no real way to recover that peaked audio. Just like if you overexpose a video and blow your highlights and can't recover them, if you peak your audio and blow it out, you can't recover it either. But all this changes with the advent of 32-bit float audio and why it's such a big deal. Imagine never dealing with peaking audio ever again. Additionally, imagine never dealing with audio that is too quiet ever again either. That's the promise of 32-bit float audio, and I realize that sounds kind of magical. So to break things down a bit more scientifically, recorders that are capable of recording 32-bit float audio like the Tascam X8 include dual audio to digital converters that essentially enable the recorder to record an incredibly wide range of audio, dramatically more than non-32-bit audio recorders. This means that the X8 is basically recording everything from the quietest whisper to the incredibly loud, think standing inside a jet engine level of noise. And what this means for you as a filmmaker is that you can press record on this recorder, and anything you record that's too quiet, you'll be able to bring up the audio levels without increasing the noise floor because the dynamic range is so good, while simultaneously, if you have anything that's too loud that would normally be peaking and blown out with any other audio recorder, you can simply click and drag down your audio levels and recover all of that peaking audio. Now, as a quick aside, I do want to warn you though that you still may run into audio that you record with the X8 that may be peaking and you cannot save, but the odds are that the X8 isn't going to be to blame. Instead, you may run into issues with your microphone that you're using not being able to hit those loud volumes. Microphones have a maximum recording volume that they can hit, and the odds are that you will probably hit the max volume that your microphone can handle before you hit the max volume of the X8. Okay, now that I've sold you on the magic of 32-bit float recording, and as I said, this is one of the main reasons that I'm moving on from the H4n. But you may be wondering now, why this X8? What makes me recommend this recorder, considering there are other 32-bit float recorders out there that have existed for a while, like the Zoom F6 and Sound Devices Mix Pre 3? Well, my choosing the X8 comes down to two things: the build and the price. So let's talk about the build first, and we will cover the general build as well as what sets apart this recorder from some of its 32-bit float competition. The X8 has a well-built plastic construction that's easy to hold in one hand and has a nice heft to it that isn't too heavy. It has built-in microphones at the top that you can actually detach and plug in 3.5mm lav mics for recording someone speaking if you want to. That's pretty cool. There's a power switch with hold button on the side, micro SD card slot that takes cards up to 512 gigabytes in size, and a slot on the bottom where you can insert a Bluetooth control module and control the X8 remotely using Tascam's Portacapture control app. Unfortunately, you cannot monitor the audio remotely over Bluetooth, but you can see your levels and make sure the recorder is recording, which is great. And most importantly, this recorder has 4 combo XLR and 1/4-inch jacks for plugging into audio sources like a DJ soundboard. These combo XLR and 1/4-inch jacks are what's really important about this recorder and help set it apart from the 32-bit float competition. Because at the time of making this video, the Tascam X8 is the only 32-bit float recorder at this price point that's offering you combo XLR and 1/4-inch audio jacks. Look at the Zoom F6 for example, and while it has more XLR inputs with 6 instead of 4, these are only XLR inputs, and you are going to have to purchase separate adapters if you want to use these audio inputs with 1/4-inch cables. With the X8, to be clear, I do realize that using 1/4-inch to XLR adapters isn't necessarily expensive, but these combo inputs mean there's one less cable you have to bring along in your bag, and that's a plus. Weight-wise, the X8 isn't too bad, but it does have a nice heft to it, with most of the weight coming from the 4 AA batteries that power the recorder. Speaking of batteries and battery life, Tascam says you can expect 11 hours with alkaline batteries, 9.5 hours with rechargeables, and 18 hours with lithium batteries. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to pick up any lithium AA's to test, but with my admittedly about a 1.5 year old rechargeable Amazon Basics batteries, I found the recorder can run for 8 hours and 38 minutes before dying. Of course, as a big plus, you will notice there is a USB-C port on the side, meaning that this recorder can be powered by plugging in any USB-C cable that you have, or by a USB battery pack, which could potentially get you days of runtime. Let's now talk about one of the biggest and first things that you'll notice about the X8 whenever you start using it, and that would be this big, glorious screen on the front. I think the best thing about this screen is that it's big enough that someone might mistake you for holding a really big smartphone, like one of those ultra rugged smartphones that construction workers have that can handle being crushed by a dump truck or something like that. Unfortunately, this recorder doesn't take phone calls, and it's definitely not a Retina touchscreen, but the screen is fairly high quality, and most importantly, the touchscreen is quite responsive. I was worried this thing might be slow or laggy, but thankfully, even with this pre-release unit, I found it to be quite snappy. Turn on the recorder, and it powers on in a few seconds, and you'll be brought to the launcher screen, which gives you a variety of presets and controls for the recorder. There are presets for music recording, field recording, podcast, a tuner and metronome, and even ASMR recording if you're into that. As a plus, this recorder can also be used as an SD card reader if you plug it into your computer, and it can also be used as a USB-C microphone interface as well if you want to use it as a computer mic. For me though, as well as most wedding filmmakers, you're going to want to select the manual preset, which, as it says, will give you multi-track recording with up to 6 input channels, all of them which can be customized. In the manual preset, you can dig into the recording settings and tell the X8 you want to record in 32-bit float audio. Then you can plug in your audio inputs, say XLR or 1/4-inch from a DJ soundboard, then use the input gain setting to dial in your audio levels so they sound good. And lastly, press record. And what's great is because your audio is recording in 32-bit float, if the volume changes and gets too loud or too soft, you should be able to recover it. Now, with your settings dialed in, let's talk audio quality. I know that I gave you a little preview earlier when I was talking about 32-bit float audio, but let's dive into this more. The first thing you need to know is that for an audio quality test, I've actually been recording the audio for this entire video using the Deity S-Mic 2 plugged in via XLR to the Tascam X8. So this whole video is actually an audio test. And you may also be thinking, dang, that sounds pretty good. But hold on, because any audio recorder is only going to sound as good as the microphone that you're using with it. Having 32-bit float audio is amazing, but if you pair it with a really crappy microphone, your audio is still going to sound terrible. So if the microphone is really the important part, what actual effect does the audio recorder have on the quality of your audio? Well, in the past, if your recorder was recording too soft and you needed to bring up the levels, sometimes that would introduce a lot of noise into your audio. Think that electronic s sound that I'm sure you've heard in some YouTube videos before. Likewise, if your recorder was recording too loud, this would introduce peaking that would basically destroy your audio and make it sound really distorted. I'm betting you've heard that in some YouTube videos too. So, with older recorders, it was always a balance of trying to make sure that your audio levels were set in the Goldilocks sweet spot of not too soft and not too loud. And this was pretty easy to do even if you were recording audio of a wedding reception where you were running around like crazy. As long as you had a minute or two to plug in your audio and test it to make sure it sounds good, you would usually get good audio. Please note though that I said usually, because inevitably, if you film enough weddings, something's going to mess up. A groomsman is going to go rogue and start screaming into the microphone, peaking your audio levels, or you're going to get the softest voice bridesmaid ever that's just barely whispering into the microphone that they're holding 2 feet away from their mouth. In the past, you could salvage your audio a bit, but for the most part, the audio you record is the audio that you're stuck with, which is one reason that I always recommend having backups for everything. But with a Tascam X8, while yes, I still do recommend having backups for everything, having a recorder like this with 32-bit float audio is going to save you in those edge cases. When things mess up and your audio levels get out of whack and are too loud or too soft, this is where 32-bit float audio is going to shine and save your butt. This is also the point where it becomes worth buying a recorder like the X8 with 32-bit float audio. So let's wrap up this review and talk about the price, which is actually incredibly intriguing and one of the main reasons that I wanted to make this review. To start, I'm aware that prices can always change and with all the supply chain craziness that's happening right now, but at the time of making this video, Tascam has set the price of the X8 at $499, which hey, that's still a hefty chunk of change for sure, but let's compare it to the competition. First, you have the Zoom F6, which is also capable of recording 32-bit float audio. But when you look at the price for the F6, that comes in at $700. Yes, $200 more than the X8. Are you seeing why I'm intrigued by this recorder? Well, hold on, because remember that the X8 is also capable of taking XLR and quarter-inch inputs, something that the much more expensive F6 cannot do without an adapter. And in fact, if you wanted a 32-bit float audio recorder that has dual XLR and quarter-inch inputs before Tascam announced the X8, you would need to go out and spend an eye-watering $1,060 for the Sound Devices MixPre 6.2, which, to be clear, is a fantastic audio recorder. But as a wedding filmmaker that's interested in saving myself and you money, whenever I see the X8 for half the price at $499, I'm definitely going to be intrigued by this recorder. And now, having spent some time using the X8 and really liking its features and capabilities, I have no problem saying that if you're interested in a 32-bit float audio recorder that you can use for wedding filmmaking or YouTube videos or corporate videos or basically anything else for that matter, I think the Tascam X8 is the recorder that you should buy. Hey, Matt from the future here for one quick second. As it always happens, I recorded this video a few weeks before I was ready to post it, and in that time, Tascam's main competitor, Zoom, announced a new recorder. The Zoom F3. This new recorder is quite small with only 2 XLR inputs, but it does include 32-bit float audio recording and it looks very promising. Unfortunately though, Zoom has not announced the price for the F3 at the time of making this video, but because I know there's going to be a lot of you commenting, what do you think about the F3, Matt? Let me just tell you that I think the F3 looks pretty cool and I'm definitely going to try and pick one up to review and tell you how it compares to the X8. Alright. With that, I really hope this video has been helpful to you if you've been considering upgrading your audio recording gear. Also, it would be a huge help to me if you would consider liking this video and subscribing if you want to see more videos about filmmaking in the future. And if you happen to be a wedding filmmaker like me, you probably want to book more couples and film more weddings, and I would love to help you out with that. I've created a free guide that's going to walk you through some practical steps that you can take right now in your business to book more couples and film more weddings. It's a completely free gift to you. You can download it at the link down in the video description. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.